about how the Warriors had a walkthrough scheduled at 10. Testing didn't come back. They had to push it all the way to 3 just before the game. And Steve Kerr called it a, quote, audible, that you guys have to accept that there's going to be a lot of audibles this year. Do you have any examples thus far in training camp of audibles as a result of, the current predicament that we're in?
The current predicament, we can go back to before we went to Orlando. We never had a phase 1. Our facility got shut down before we could even go down there. And we only had 8 guys going to Orlando. So I agree with Steve, obviously, with the current pandemic and what we're all going through. The fact that we still get daily memos from the NBA with new protocols. This is all coming at you so fast and somewhat on the fly. Yesterday, so now we have the point of care testing. So we take 2 tests per day now. And the turnaround time is usually around 45 minutes. So yesterday, drove to the arena, parked in my spot, went inside, got tested. They told you, I can't go to my office. I got to go back out to my car. It was 19 degrees out yesterday. So I'm sitting in my car for 45 minutes waiting for my test. Now, you could call it Murphy's Law, or maybe just somebody was breaking my balls. But of course, my test became invalid. So I had to get tested again. So I was in my car for an hour and a half yesterday, hanging out, doing work, watching video by myself, which actually isn't that bad. I kind of like that. But that's an example of you got to roll with the punches. I mean, we will have guys test positive. Games may be postponed. When you're on the road and you have the point of care testing, which is supposed to be rapid testing, it may take a while. You're at the hands of the testers. And right here in our building, the bioreference lab, the ladies who work for the BRL, they've been phenomenal. They're working their butts off. But this will be a really interesting year. By far, much harder than the bubble, much different than the bubble. This is going to be a strange, strange year.
Let's go to Chris Marlowe next.
Well, Coach, how you doing? Speaking of the bubble, your team showed great comeback ability, second halves, third quarters, able to close teams out and come from behind. That being said, you're getting behind a lot, and you did in your first the preseason game with the Warriors. Got behind by 11 at the half and 20. How do you get your team to get off to better starts and rev it up quicker?
Well, I think when you go back to the Golden State game, I actually thought, Chris, our starters played well. It was with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, I believe it was a 1-point game. And then we always talk about closing quarters and the importance of that. Our bench unit allowed Golden State to close the first quarter on an 8-1 run. So now they have momentum going into the second quarter, and we never really got it back. To your point, coming out at halftime, our starting group did not play well. Had to call a couple of timeouts. We were down by 20. Thank goodness we were able to go on a 10-0 run ourselves to cut a 20-point deficit to 10 rather quickly and make a game of it. But you're right. It's a very valid point, very fair point. 2-3-1 come from behind victories is great, but constantly finding yourself in a hole is not where you want to be. So just greater sense of urgency to start the games, greater sense of urgency coming out of the locker room at halftime, not waiting. Why wait? Let's just bring it from the get-go. Bring more each and every day.
We'll go to Todd Romero next. Todd, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, Todd.
When you look at Michael Porter Jr. and the role he has now and what he's wanting to step into, consistency is such a thing with a young player. It's hard to find. How do you help coach that with him? And I asked him the same question. He talked about the effort part of it, but to see a player get there and not go maybe 18 one night for another, is there a way to help coach consistency?
Yeah, I think the greatest way to help a guy become consistent is just through experience, and playing. Jamal Murray, in my opinion, had similar issues early in his career. And I'm talking about Jamal like he's an old veteran. He's in his 5th year. He's still young himself. But Jamal has kind of gone through the learning curve and the growing pains of being a young, talented player that might get you 48 one night against Boston and 6 the next night. I'd rather 25 every night instead of the highs and lows. And I think Michael, Well, as he's been given more and more consistent minutes, like we saw in Orlando in the seeding games, as well as the playoff games, I think for a young player playing in his first playoffs as a true rookie, I thought he was really consistent overall. Michael's greatest challenge is not going to be the offense, will not be the rebounding. Michael's greatest challenge is understanding the importance of the defensive end and buying into that end of the floor. If he does that, he's got a chance to be a spectacular player, not just an offensive player, which is what he wants and what we want as an organization.
Next, we'll go to Young Maisuk. Go ahead.
Hey, Michael, it's always great talking to you. Was wondering, you were just talking about how this is a strange season and you're so in tune with your players. But in these challenging times as a coach, do you watch guys that have had COVID earlier and see if you see any signs of any symptoms or side effects? Knock on wood, hopefully not. But is that something as a coach now that has to be on your mind moving forward as far as like minutes played or conditioning or anything like that?
Well, I'll say this just overall, and I have to imagine, that we're not the only team that feels this way. I'm not the only head coach that feels this way, that we're not in great condition right now. We're just not a great condition team. I don't know how many great condition teams there are. Shortest offseason in NBA history. And for 10 returning players that were in the bubble for 83 days, we had a 2-month offseason. And guys needed to take some time off mentally as well as physically. And you always, the old adage in the NBA from the coaches was, you don't want players coming back and using training camp to get in shape. The good teams are going to have players that come back that are in shape. You can hit the ground running. The reality is that we got guys in that training camp that are still trying to get in shape. And that's just the fact of the matter. That is something I am aware of, cognizant of, have to keep an eye on. How hard am I pushing them? Do I have to ease up a little bit, give them an off day, monitor their minutes? The other thing that I think is even more important, I referenced the point of care testing. So you have to understand the work days that these players have now. But don't worry about the coaches, but the players. So if a player in our team is supposed to be in the training room at 9 o'clock for an 11 o'clock practice, that means he has to get here before 8 o'clock to take his point of care test. Give yourself 1 hour for that return time so you can be cleared to enter the building and the locker room. So if you got to be here at 8 o'clock for a point of care test, that means you're leaving your house probably around 7:30. Practice isn't until 11. They're probably not getting out of here until after 2:30, 3 o'clock. That is a very long day for these players. That is what I worry about. I worry about, yes, the conditioning, the physical demands, but more importantly, and I talked to our team about this after practice, I worry about the emotional and the mental side of all this. Because if you're coming into, NBA players aren't accustomed to being at the arena for 7-8 hours a day. Coaches are, we're fine with that, but the players, that's not part of their DNA, unfortunately. And we have to find ways to alleviate those demands. But we have to be here every day to get tested. Over All-Star break, we have to get tested every day. On an off day, we have to get tested every day. So there's really very little ways around it. We have to understand that. But my job as a head coach is to find ways to get them the mental and physical rest whenever I can.
Katie Wingy next.
Hey, Coach. 4 years ago on this date, you put Nikola Jokic in your starting lineup. And I'm curious, when you think back to that time, what do you think about that decision now?
What the hell took me so long? No, I remember the circumstances. It was, we had just come off of a really disappointing road trip, and we had played in Dallas and gotten blown out. And I just remember during that time, Nikola had a really good rookie season. Tried a big lineup to start my second year with Nikola and Nurkic. That didn't go well. I wound up moving Nikola to the bench, and it hit me like, here I had a rookie center, Nikola Jokic, had a really good rookie season, and all of a sudden, year two, I'm going to start him at the power forward spot, and then I'm going to bring him off the bench, and then finally I said, Nikola is everything that this team should identify with. He's unselfish, he plays hard, he plays the right way, and I realized that if I made that decision to play through him, for him to be the focal point of our offense, that was going to benefit us in a big way, and it has. Since that point in time, Katie, we've been a top 3 offense in the NBA, and Nikola's been a huge part of that. So, things happen, and you have to make tough decisions, big decisions, and that really was a defining moment for this franchise.
All right, we have time for one more. Let's end with Vic Lombardi. Vic, go ahead.
Coach, needless to say, next time you're stuck in your car for 90 minutes, we welcome you to listen to Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
Well, give yourself a plug there, Vic. I like it, baby.
No problem. But, Coach, about the division, what do you think about your division? How much better is it in this short off season? And Portland in particular, what they do to get better?
Yeah, I think Portland's really good, and last year they were decimated by injuries. I think Terry does a really good job as a coach. You have one of the best backcourts in the NBA with, CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, Carmelo Anthony, Yusuf Nurkic. They got Rodney Hood back, Zach Collins back, and they get Robert Covington. They're a good basketball team. And I think they're going to have a much better season in the regular season than they had last year because they're going to be healthy. And so they're going to be somebody, we've won back-to-back division titles. So we know that Portland will be a team that we have to, go to battle with to try to get a third straight division title. OKC had a lot of changes. They went young, obviously, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but they'll still be a good team. Obviously, they have a new coach. Minnesota, high draft pick, Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Malik Wancho, Anthony Edwards are draft picks. So I always feel, Vic, that our divisions has been and will continue to be one of the toughest and deepest in the entire NBA. And that is always one of our goals. Like, let's win our division, because if you're winning your division, that means you're handling your business. And last year, I think we did it hands down. We won in a big way. So, but division games always matter more. That's the reality of it.
All right, Coach, that will do it for today. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.